Okay, welcome to Syntax 101. I tried to do just an audio clip of this and it didn't work. It didn't make sense. So I have to write stuff down. I'm gonna have to erase some things. I hope nobody needed this. Okay, so I think what helped is to start from the big picture and then kind of work your way inwards. So you want to start with the realization that like all of linguistics is a science, right? And we're all just trying to figure out how language works. And at this point in our model of language, we have these different tiers, right? So we have like phonetics, and then we have phonology, and then morphology. So we've gotten all the way up to the morphology level. So we have sounds and rules for how those sounds are arranged, and then we have words and different categories of words and words that do different things and conjugate in different ways. And now we need a way of putting all those words together in order to form sentences that make sense, right? And what we've been doing in class is basically just coming up with different theories for how that might work in natural language. And with every theory that you come up with, you want to try and find ways to break it. In other words, you want to find places in natural language where it doesn't work. Either it produces a result you wouldn't expect, or you want it to do something specific, but it's not working. So you're testing all of your theories against actual real-world data. So I lost my train of thought. Oh, God. Yeah, so the first theory would be just to say that there is no necessary order, and you can just put any words or a certain combination of words in any order, and then you can create a grammatical sentence that native speakers can understand intuitively. And that's obviously not true. Like, we need to find a way of getting... Okay. I'm gonna have to reverse this video so that the text shows the right way. That's not how you spell apples. I wrote apples with 2 L's and 1 P. Okay, so Mary ate apples, right? Wait. So Mary ate apples. Obviously, you can't just put all of these words in any order and have it be correct. Like, you can say Mary apples ate or ate Mary apples, and you might be able to figure out what it means, but it's obviously not as correct as Mary ate apples. So we want to try and figure out the rules that determine how we get to this sentence. So one possible interpretation would be that you start from the subject and then you just move on in a line like that, which is what the finite state machines were that we talked about. And that doesn't work because of the reasons that we discussed in class, mainly that they are not context sensitive, which is a lot for me to try to explain without like looking it over and like fully internalizing it. But I can help you with that later if you need. You can also just go to office hours. Might be better actually. But basics idea is we have this. Obviously, it can't just be that you start from the left and go outward. So we want to move forward with this idea that there's some kind of like structure to sentences, right? Like, you don't necessarily start with a word in the sentence. You start with a template for how sentences are formed, and then you fill in stuff from there. So from this point on in our theory, we can start thinking not how are the basic structures of sentences, but now that we've agreed that there is like a template for how sentences are formed, we can start to think, what is that template? And the correct answer is that there's more than one. But instead of thinking about it in terms of like starting with the template, start with the sentences in the language, and then try and build a model that makes all of those pieces work together. And we're not going to get there for a while. We haven't gotten anywhere near like WH movement and uninterpretable features and theta roles. We're going to get there. It's going to get a lot more complicated. And to be honest with you, I don't fully understand syntax either. But basically, what we've been doing for the last couple days is like phrase structure. So instead of saying that you start with, say, the word Mary, and then you figure out what goes from there, you start with like a basic template for these phrases, like noun phrases, verb phrases, and then from there you can kind of fill stuff in. And so that way you can swap out Mary for like John, or I don't know, the Prince of Egypt, or whatever it might be. Like, so this idea is that you can swap out subjects more easily instead of just having to produce an entirely new sentence that has no relation to the original. Like, Mary ate apples and Joe ate apples are very clearly related sentences. So it doesn't really intuitively make sense to say that you want to generate an entirely new structure in your head every time you want to swap out the subject in a sentence as simple as this. Which is the motivation for phrase structure. Just that it makes the mental work a little bit easier. And so what we were doing today is constituency. And constituency is basically a more sophisticated version of phrase structure. In any given sentence, and it's actually easier to see in longer sentences, there are certain groups of words that will pattern together, in that when the syntax is messed with, they move together as a group. That you can't really separate them in a way and still have the sentences make sense. That's what a constituent is. So, to use the example that we had in class today, the surly pirate drank the rum, there are several constituents in that sentence, and a lot of them overlap. So, I'll do... Can you see this whole... I don't know. Okay, so we have the surly pirate drank the rum. I'm going to stand over here. There are many, many constituents in this sentence. And as native speakers, we kind of have the advantage of being able to rely on intuition when we're figuring out what the constituents are. But if you're working with a language that you don't speak, then you'll either have to ask native speakers or try and figure it out through a constituency test. I'll just give you the answers first, and then we'll work our way backwards. So the constituents that I can see are the surly pirate drank the rum, and the rum. So just going based off of intuition, I'll say those again, and you'll kind of be able to have an understanding intuitively of that, like, yeah, those are like individual units of the sentence. Those go together. So it's like, the surly pirate drank the rum and the rum. That makes sense, right? But if I said pirate drank, it doesn't scan as well. It's not as obvious that those are like part of the same unit, you know? Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So you can go through the constituency tests that we did in class today, one of them being coordination, which doesn't mean coordination as in working together, but it means coordination as in ordering together. So if you have a constituent here, such as the rum, the idea is that you can put the rum there and then another constituent of the same structure, and if it makes sense, then you're good. So you could say, the surly pirate drank the rum and the whiskey. But you couldn't say, the surly pirate... How do I say this? You couldn't say, the surly pirate drank the rum and Captain drank the whiskey. So, like, if you were trying to test if pirate drank the rum is a constituent, then you would take pirate drank the rum, add and then another constituent of the same structure. And that doesn't work. But you can say the surly pirate drank the rum and smashed the bottle, and that's fine. So that's evidence for drink the rum being a constituent. You could also do fragmentation, which is just take whatever you think is a constituent and make it the answer to whatever the question would have to be. So if the sentence is the surly pirate drank the rum, then you could say, who drank the rum? The surly pirate. What did the surly pirate drink? The rum. What did the surly pirate do? Drank the rum. So those are all constituents. But you couldn't say, like, what did the surly pirate drank the rum? Doesn't make sense. So yeah, that's basic idea. This is over 10 minutes long now, so I'm going to stop it here. If you have any more questions, let me know. Yeah, thanks for coming to my TED Talk.